Hello YouTube community, my name's the Jacob13 and we're here with some trading card game of Pokemon Online. Or Pokemon the Trading Card Game Online. I don't know why I said that so weirdly the first time. Anyway, so the whole purpose of this series at the moment is sort of just test out the water, see if there's any interest in it. Most of the time these types of videos are going to be me talking to myself about random stories, and it's directed towards you, but it's going to be me talking to myself. No one else is going to be here, so if you're expecting sort of like dual comms for this, nah. If you're expecting live commentary for this, more than likely not. I might eventually start doing this with CamSauce 505. We might have some duels or something every now and again. Or Pokemon battles, excuse me. But yeah, one of the main things on my channel that sort of got me back into wanting to do it when I was looking over at it is my Yu-Gi-Oh playthrough, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist of the Roses. When I was in that sort of funk in 2016 where I just didn't upload anything, the first thing that came to mind with all of this was I wanted to, sort of get back into the recording scene. And because that game was the only game so far that I've completed all the way through, and it was a card game, when I found this, I was like, oh, I have to do a video of this. I have to sort of go back to my roots, quote unquote. But another thing that also was part of my roots was the wrestling stuff, and I will eventually get back to that, but probably not for a good while. But yeah, so one of the big things about the Pokemon trading card game that I really like is that it's really easy to get into with this online version. They really have a good user interface. So they show you what you can and cannot do. They tell you what might be a good idea if you're running out of ideas. And they also have a time limit. So you're not going to spend any more than an hour at the maximum on a Pokemon card game, because both sides have under 30 minutes worth of time to decide things. Most of the time you're not going to need that full 30 minutes. I finish games relatively quickly when I'm actually completing a game, like the one that you're going to see first time round. The second time round I don't think I've completed all the way through. It generally takes me about 10 to 15 minutes to do, to either win or get my ass beat. So I apologize for the squeaky chair. I'll eventually get that removed. I've been meaning to do that for the longest but never did. So another great thing is that Pokemon cards that you wouldn't think have a lot of power have a lot of power. So like Raichu with his Circle Circuit, early game, if you get on a roll with him, you end everything. It's over. If you start off with a lot of basic Pokemon in your hand, one of which being Pikachu, and you're able to get a Raichu real quick, the game's over. You win. It's pretty annoying, but it's also pretty awesome. And also Gyarados is another, especially that card that I just pulled, that Gyarados especially, because Berserker Splash does 80 damage, which is, of course, a 3 energy move, which is difficult to sort of build up to. But for late game, I normally use my Gyarados to finish people off by using Aqua Tail. And it does so well against other people's decks most of the time. Unless they have a grass deck, I've not really found an answer to grass decks at the very moment. Except for maybe just throwing Audino in there and hoping and praying that I can beat them with that. Normally that does something. But they always have a lot of EXs or... I see a lot of EXs and I see a lot of legendaries. But yeah, you can use Aqua Tail, and for all of the energies that are water on your Pokemon, in the case of this one it would be Gyarados, so all of the water energies on your Gyarados, which I think includes special energies, it flips a coin, and for every heads that you get it does an additional 30 damage. So 90 damage base off of a 4 energy move, which by itself is also pretty good for late game. But then you get the extra 30 for every heads that you get, so you have a total of a potential 240 with just 5 energy things on it, which is just 1 over the required amount for it to have. The best part about it is that you don't get rid of any, so it's not like Flamethrower or Fire Blast or anything like that. It's one of those that you actually are able to do something with it, and it's not, you do this and it gets rid of something. One of the also really cool things that I learned about this game is that if you put a special energy on a Pokemon, it will sometimes send it back to your hand. I think it has to be sort of not used for anything else. So if you're using like Flamethrower on an Arcanine, and you're using that special energy constantly to be the one to discard, because in order to use Flamethrower you have to discard one. If you use the special energy, if you use the special energy for that, it comes back to you so you can constantly use it. But you also can't use it to revive your Arcanine. On the flip side, if you don't use Flamethrower, I think it will let you revive the Arcanine. I'm not entirely sure about how that works, just because I've seen different things when I've played that I wasn't able to quite grasp the difference between them. So like I didn't use... I think it was actually with my Gyarados. I didn't use that special energy for anything, and it didn't come back to my hand. So I was confused about that. Maybe it's like a 50-50 chance that it'll do it. Maybe it was a glitch in the game that occasionally happens still for whatever reason. Or maybe that's just how the game works and that it's supposed to do that, but it just didn't happen because some coding was wrong with the game. There's any number of things that could have happened. So, yeah, one of the things that I wanted to do for this episode, and mainly for this series, is just sort of tell stories. And the story that I wanted to talk about today on the channel for this episode was sort of my experience with trading card games, you know, in the past. Not just necessarily not necessarily the games, but just the trading cards in general, and sort of my history with them. I might have talked a little bit about this in the past, but I thoroughly enjoy sort of going over the basics. So obviously we're playing Pokemon, so let's go ahead and talk about Pokemon first. When I was younger, I never actually knew how the game worked. I didn't understand the energy concept. Now, since the game sort of teaches you while you're playing the online version, I'm pretty decent with it. Not the greatest thing that's ever happened to Pokemon gaming, but I do a good enough job. So I think currently my win-loss ratio is lower than I would like it to be, but it is pretty good. I think it's somewhere in the every 4 games I win 3 of them, roughly, something like that. I can check later on. It's probably actually lower than that, watching over the footage that I recorded. The footage that I recorded was against a lot of EXs and Legendaries too, which is very unusual. I don't normally face like 4 EXs in a deck or 4 GXs in a deck, you know, especially when I only have 1 in mine, and I'm sort of banking on being able to get Circle Circuit going at the very beginning. And if I can't get Circle Circuit going, then basically meat shielding until I can get Gyarados to a high enough level to just tank everything. But yeah, when I was younger, I normally played a lot with the Water-type Pokemon, and I don't think we really played it most of the time. We sort of just like traded back and forth. But when we did play, it was sort of like we just chose the moves we wanted to use when we wanted to use them. And one of my favorite Pokemon that I had was, I think it was a Team Aqua Wolverine. It also might have been like a Wolverine special card or something like that. I eventually sold that for much less than it's worth, because I was just getting rid of my cards and I didn't really want to have them in my house, you know, clogging everything up. Oh god, I'm sorry. But yeah, so that was one of my favorite cards. I never did get Swampert, which at the time was my favorite Pokemon. I never did get Mudkip, Marshtomp, and Swampert, which really bothered me when I was a kid, as you'd expect it would. But yeah, so there's pretty much my entire story of that. I was either not playing by the rules when I was playing, or we were just trading cards and I took the ones that I thought were coolest. Tended to do the same thing with Yu-Gi-Oh!, except Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a much easier game to actually play than normal game. So whenever you attack something, it does the damage. You just sort of keep track of that. I never was really into that. When I played Yu-Gi-Oh! It was either online, not online, on the video game Duelist of the Roses, of course, which I did a full playthrough of. Good lord, I am having difficulty speaking. I did a full playthrough of, on the channel. And how I played on the channel is pretty much how I played on when I was a kid. Yeah, it was not really... I was never really good at the game. Still aren't very good at the game. I still aren't. I still am not good at the game. So, but one of my favorite cards, and I think I've mentioned this multiple times, was Launcher Spider. I don't know exactly why I liked it so much, but it was like a spider that had missile launchers on its back. And I just thought that's the coolest thing to ever happen ever. Now, one of my favorites is probably the island turtle, or whatever it is. It's the turtle that looks like it has an island on its back. Sort of what Torterra was based off of, I'm guessing. And it was really cool when I saw that in the TV show. And it was that, and there was one that combined with it that also had like another cannon type thing that would launch stuff. It was some sort of dragon, I think. It was a weird combination that the show did that I don't think you could do with a video game. But yeah, it was pretty cool. Not the video game, the card game. Blech. And then, of course, as everyone knows, when you're a little boy, you know, you sort of get into Pokemon. Yes, you do get into Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Magic or whatever, but I also got much into baseball cards. And one of the biggest times when I would get baseball cards was when I was at a baseball camp. So I went to baseball camp when I was, I think, all the way up until the age of 12, roughly. So from the age of like 8 to 12, it was about 4 years. Sounds about right. And it was a baseball camp in, what was it, Williamsport, right? Yeah, Williamsport, Pennsylvania, where the Little League World Series is played. And it was a wonderful time. They had a canteen where you could get things like slushies, the Twizzlers, any types of candy bars, the kind of things that when you're a child you want to get. And they also sold a lot of baseball cards because it was a baseball camp, so obviously baseball cards. And I would buy so many baseball cards. I actually had an entire tub of Hubba Bubba one year that I brought. It was gone within like the first 3 days, but it was one of those 150-piece Hubba Bubba containers, and I filled that entire container with all of all the baseball cards that I got during that one trip. It was actually amazing. It was a lot of fun. And some of the cards that I remember, actively searching for were, at the time, I was a pretty big fan of the Angels because I played High Heat Baseball 2002, and that was the first time that I had ever seen the Angels Stadium. And so I was looking for players that were no longer on the team when I was actually at the camp. So I was looking for people like Tim Salmon, Troy Gloss, Barry Green, because those were the guys that I actually played with a lot of the time and really liked. But by the time that I actually got around to the cards, I think Troy Gloss had retired. I'm almost certain Tim Salmon retired. And I don't think Barry Green was ever as big as he was on the game for me. For whatever reason, he just always hit home runs whenever I played the game. Like, I would play on easy mode because I was a kid and I wanted to feel the gratification of winning. But I would always hit home runs. Like, there was never an at-bat when he would come up and it wouldn't be like a line drive into the outfield or a home run. Like, he only hit home runs, struck out, or hit into the outfield. It was insane in the game. Found out later on that he's not really a well-known guy, at least not from anything that I've ever seen. So that was sort of disappointing. But yeah, I eventually got rid of all those cards. Made a decent profit off of it. I had, for whatever reason, I think it was 2009, the entire roster for every single team in the MLB. Some of the cards were signed, other cards were not, and it was one of those Topps, Topps every now and again did a sort of signed pack type thing where they would give you all of these cards signed and such, and that's what I ended up having. And I painstakingly won for one yard sale, I painstakingly went through every single one of the cards, put them on each team that they belonged on, put each team into each division that it belonged in, and organized it by the amount of wins that each division had that year, that each team rather in the divisions had. So whoever was first in the NL East, which I think that was the Braves in the year that I played. That I had those cards. I think the Braves were the NL East. It was either the Braves or maybe the Phillies. I'm thinking the Braves is what I ended up working with. But whatever the case, I ended up selling all of that for a good chunk of money. I also had all of the football cards from one year for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I had all of the players signed. One of my favorite cards was Troy Polamalu because he was my favorite football player. I always loved watching him when he got interceptions and just ran it as far as he could. I remember when the Steelers won the Super Bowl against the Seahawks the first time in 2005, I think it was. There was an interception that was run back to at the end zone, and it was like a 90-some yard interception or something like that. It was insane. I talk about this, and a lot of people don't ever remember it, so either my memory's foggy and that wasn't the playoffs or the Super Bowl, or that was, and other people just didn't care. I don't really know. But yeah, he was always pretty cool. I've also, just sort of coming up on the end of this video here, I guess, want to talk about some other stuff. Other things that I've wanted to do were sports video games. I know I sort of went on this tangent about sports cards at the end, but I'm a big fan of playing multiple sports games. The MLB games are pretty fun. Basketball games are pretty fun. Occasionally I'll play the Madden games, so not recently. And I was thinking about trying out NHL one year, simply because I wanted to just ram into people. So if you guys got this far into the video, sort of leave a comment in the comment section below, telling me whether or not you enjoy that. By the way, here's Aquatail wrecking face. I didn't even really need to have any heads to win, but yeah, because I really wanted to do that, sort of go through an entire season with a team in each game. So tell me what you think about that in the section below. Thank you very much for joining me. My name's the Jacob at 13, and I am signing out. Catch you all later.